Eugene "Big U" Henley Jr. was once viewed as one of the most respected figures to ever come out of South Los Angeles.
I never mixed that with nothing. I didn't manipulate nobody, I didn't steal nothing.
A man known for his influence in hip-hop, his connections in the streets, and his role as a community activist trying to steer young people away from violence. But today, the same man who was celebrated as a mentor and godfather of rap is sitting in federal custody, facing a massive 43-count RICO indictment that paints a completely different picture of his life behind the scenes.
Remember BigU? He turned himself into federal custody last month after a shocking indictment.
Federal prosecutors now accuse BigU of operating what they describe as a mafia-style criminal enterprise tied to murder, extortion, fraud, robbery, and intimidation. The case has shocked both the hip-hop industry and the streets of Los Angeles because for years, Henley carefully built the image of a reformed OG, someone who had supposedly left the gang life behind after serving more than a decade in prison. Instead, prosecutors claim he never truly walked away from that world at all.
So just today, it was released that the feds have 20,000 hours. No, 20,000 different wiretaps.
Born and raised in the Hyde Park area of South Central Los Angeles, Henley came up through the infamous Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips during the height of gang violence in the 1980s. Back then, his reputation was built through robberies, drug trafficking, and street activity that eventually landed him behind bars after a failed cocaine robbery sting in 1991. He spent 13 years in prison before being released in 2004, and that release would mark the beginning of his transformation into a public figure with deep influence in music, business, and community politics.
They basically said that what they call the BigU enterprise from at least 2010 until his arrest.
After prison, Henley reinvented himself. He launched the nonprofit organization Developing Options, worked with city-funded youth programs in Los Angeles, and became heavily involved in gang intervention efforts. Over the years, his nonprofit reportedly received more than $2 million in city grant money. At the same time, he built major connections inside the music industry, managing artists like Corrupt, helping launch the early career of the late Nipsey Hussle, and surrounding himself with celebrities, athletes, and major rap figures. To many people, he looked like proof that someone could survive the streets and come back to rebuild their community.
In one intercepted call, Henley said, "I'm retired, N-word, activist. I'll pull up on your block right now."
But according to federal authorities, that public image was only one side of the story. Behind the scenes, investigators claim Big U was secretly running an organized criminal operation for years, using his status, reputation, and influence to control people through fear and intimidation.
But now we know the victim's name, Rayshawn Williams. Now, prior to him being a rapper, he was a football player for Crenshaw High. Now, according to the indictment, Big U allegedly murdered Rayshawn by shooting him multiple times.
The FBI investigation that led to Henley's arrest was called Operation Drawdown, and it reportedly involved years of surveillance, confidential informants, financial records, phone interceptions, and more than 20,000 wiretapped conversations. Prosecutors say the evidence collected against Henley and his alleged associates spans over a decade. It includes everything from extortion schemes to murder allegations. The most shocking accusation in the entire case involves the murder of a young aspiring rapper named Rayshawn Williams, a 21-year-old artist who had reportedly been mentored by Big U himself. Williams had ties to Big U's music label and was once considered part of his inner circle.
Well, there are 75 potential snitches in Big U's case. And they collected this over the years to try to put this huge case together on him.
But prosecutors claim things turned deadly after the young rapper allegedly recorded a diss track aimed at Henley. According to the indictment, Big U and another associate drove to Las Vegas, abducted Williams, and murdered him in the desert before dumping his body near Interstate 15. Federal investigators say cell phone data, testimony, and surveillance evidence place Henley near the scene around the time of the killing.
The allegations don't stop there. Federal prosecutors also accuse Henley of running a long-standing check-in system throughout Los Angeles, a street practice where rappers, athletes, promoters, and celebrities allegedly had to get approval and protection before operating in certain parts of the city. According to the indictment, those who refused to check in risked being robbed, assaulted, or targeted. Investigators claim this system generated large amounts of money through intimidation and fear, turning Big U into one of the most powerful behind-the-scenes figures in LA street culture.
75 people since 2018 that have been given statements on Big U.
Now, as he waits for trial in federal custody with no bail, the man once celebrated as a community leader is facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. And in a tragic twist, while the case continues unfolding, Henley's own son, Jabari, was reportedly shot and killed in October 2025, adding another devastating chapter to a story already filled with violence, betrayal, and loss.
Come in to turn myself in, and I'm disheartened by the fact that they trying to say that I stole something from developing option.
The deeper federal investigators dug into the alleged Big U enterprise, the darker the picture became. According to prosecutors, the operation wasn't limited to street intimidation or isolated acts of violence. They claim it evolved into a full-scale system of fear, money, and control that stretched across Los Angeles nightlife, the music industry, and even charitable organizations supposedly built to help the community. Federal authorities allege that strip clubs were taxed, local businesses were pressured into paying protection money, and artists entering Los Angeles were forced to check in or risk serious consequences. For years, many people dismissed those stories as exaggerated street mythology, but prosecutors now argue those rumors reflected a very real underground system operated through intimidation and reputation.
Because I think by law, I think it's like 2 people that could start a conspiracy on you.
One of the most damaging parts of the indictment involves the finances surrounding Big U's nonprofit organization, Developing Options. This is where the case becomes especially painful for many people in Los Angeles because the organization publicly positioned itself as a lifeline for struggling youth and gang intervention efforts. Instead, prosecutors now claim the nonprofit became a tool for personal enrichment. According to reports referenced in the federal case, former NBA champion Draymond Green donated $20,000 to the organization in 2019. Prosecutors allege that the money was transferred directly into Henley's personal bank account almost immediately afterward.
When you hop off a plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in.
The government claims the same thing happened with a donation from Shaquille O'Neal. Those accusations hit especially hard because the donations were supposedly intended to support anti-violence programs and community outreach initiatives for young people in South Los Angeles.
Documentary that Big U stated, if you don't pick up the phone, that can mean death for somebody.
Federal authorities also accuse Henley of defrauding the city of Los Angeles's Gang Reduction and Youth Development Program, taxpayer-funded money specifically allocated to prevent gang violence.
Connected to his music label. Altogether, investigators describe a man who allegedly used his activist image not only as protection, but as a financial weapon. As the case grew larger, another terrifying question started spreading through hip-hop media and podcast circles. How many people were cooperating with federal authorities? One number kept surfacing repeatedly: 75.
I never mixed that with nothing. I didn't manipulate nobody, I didn't steal nothing.
While that figure hasn't been officially confirmed in court filings, it became a major talking point across interviews, YouTube breakdowns, and street discussions. The implication was staggering. For years, prosecutors allegedly approached individuals connected to Big U and offered them deals in exchange for information. In federal conspiracy cases, prosecutors don't need dozens of witnesses to build a case. Sometimes only a handful of insiders are enough. But if even a fraction of those rumored cooperators testify, combined with 20,000 wiretaps and mountains of digital evidence, the pressure facing Henley becomes enormous. Big U has publicly denied every allegation against him. Before surrendering to federal authorities, he posted emotional statements online, claiming the government was targeting him because of his influence in community work. He accused rivals like WAC 100 of helping fuel the investigation behind the scenes and insisted the case was built on gossip, manipulation, and recycled street rumors rather than hard truth.
BigU ran a criminal enterprise that they call the BigU enterprise.
He rejected accusations that he stole money from his nonprofit or exploited his community, portraying himself instead as a black activist being destroyed by the same system he tried to fight against. But while Henley was fighting the federal case publicly, an even more devastating tragedy struck his family. On Halloween night in October 2025, his 34-year-old son, Jabari "Baby Wee" Henley, was shot and killed outside a smoke shop in South Los Angeles. Investigators reportedly believed the attack was targeted. The killing sent shockwaves through the city because the timing felt almost unreal. While BigU sat behind bars fighting accusations tied to years of violence, his own son became another victim of the same kind of street bloodshed that has haunted South LA for generations.
Then dragging his body into the desert and left him there in a ditch.
From federal custody, Henley begged the court for temporary release so he could attend Islamic funeral services for his son. Prosecutors opposed the request, pointing to the painful irony of a man accused of murdering someone else's child, now asking for compassion to bury his own. The judge ultimately denied the motion. BigU remained behind bars while his family mourned without him. That moment became one of the darkest emotional turning points in the entire story. To some people, it was proof that no matter what accusations exist, no father should experience that level of pain alone. To others, it symbolized the exact cycle of violence prosecutors claim BigU helped create and sustain for years.
So they've been watching this for 15 years.
Either way, the tragedy added another heartbreaking layer to a case already overflowing with destruction, betrayal. Now, as the federal trial continues moving slowly toward court, the stakes could not be higher. Prosecutors say they have years of evidence, cooperating witnesses, financial records, cell phone data, surveillance footage, and intercepted conversations ready to present before a jury. Henley continues to plead not guilty to every charge, insisting he is being framed and politically targeted. But regardless of how the trial ultimately ends, the fall of Eugene "BigU Jr. has already become one of the most tragic and controversial stories modern hip-hop has seen. A story involving power, influence, loyalty, fear, community, betrayal, murder allegations, and a family destroyed while the entire world watches from the sidelines. And maybe that's what makes the story of BigU so difficult to look away from. It isn't just another federal indictment. It isn't just another headline about gangs, rappers, or organized crime. It's the collapse of a man who once stood at the intersection of fear, influence, power, and redemption. A man who convinced many people he had escaped the streets, while prosecutors now claim he was secretly controlling them the entire time. For decades, Eugene "BigU" Henley Jr. represented something larger than himself in Los Angeles. To some, he was a protector. To others, a gatekeeper. To many young people in South Central, he looked like living proof that someone could survive gang culture and come back to build something meaningful for the community they came from. But now, that entire image is being challenged in the harshest way imaginable. The federal government says the activist was really a kingpin. The mentor was really an intimidator. The community leader was allegedly running a criminal empire hidden behind charity events, celebrity friendships, podcasts, and nonprofit programs. And the terrifying part is this: prosecutors claim they didn't build this case from rumors alone. They say they built it through years of wiretaps, surveillance, financial records, cell phone data, and people who once stood beside him deciding to finally speak. But beyond all the paperwork, beyond the RICO charges, beyond the headlines and courtroom battles, what remains is tragedy. A young rapper named Rayshawn Williams lost his life before his career ever truly began. BigU's own son, Jabari, was gunned down while his father sat powerless behind bars. Families were shattered, careers were destroyed. Entire communities were forced once again to relive the same cycle of violence South Los Angeles has been trying to escape for generations. And now, the man once known as one of the most respected figures in hip-hop's underground world sits in federal custody, waiting for a trial that could decide whether he ever experiences freedom again.
Picture they gonna arrest 21 dudes, some dudes I don't even talk.
Maybe the jury will eventually believe the government's version of events. Maybe they won't. Maybe Big U really is the mastermind prosecutors describe. Or maybe he truly is, as he claims, a man targeted because of his influence, reputation, and enemies. That answer will ultimately belong to the courtroom. But one thing is already undeniable. The rise and fall of Big U has become one of the most shocking, painful, and complicated stories hip-hop has seen in years. A story where the lines between activist and alleged gangster, mentor and accused killer, protector and feared enforcer became impossible to separate anymore. And somewhere underneath all the headlines, all the accusations, and all the chaos lies the question that still haunts this entire case. Was Big U truly trying to save his community, or was he controlling it the whole time?